Have you ever opened your eyes and immediately felt exhausted? The day hasn't even begun, yet you are already overwhelmed by the heavy weight of everything you have to do. Instead of waking up in peace, you reach for your phone, flooding your mind with notifications, emails, and the loud noise of the world before your feet even touch the floor. We surrender our peace the very second we wake up. We start our days entirely on the defensive. But this is not just a modern struggle. Centuries ago, a man who possessed everything the world had to offer felt this same crushing emptiness. Stay with me, because his ancient story holds a remarkably simple secret that can completely transform how you live your life. In an ancient era, there lived an emperor whose domain stretched far beyond the horizon. He was a man of absolute, unquestioned power. Armies moved across the earth at the slight wave of his hand. His palaces were masterpieces of architecture, built of the finest cool marble and carved mahogany. They were filled to the brim with rare treasures brought from every corner of the known world. He ate lavish meals off plates of solid gold and rested his head on pillows woven from the softest silk. By all worldly measures, he had achieved the absolute pinnacle of human existence. He had everything a man could ever desire. Yet, the emperor was a prisoner. Every night, while his massive empire slept peacefully under the quiet, silver moonlight, the emperor paced the expansive wooden floors of his bedchamber. He could not sleep. His mind was an endless, churning storm of thoughts that refused to settle. He worried constantly about the loyalty of his generals stationed at the borders. He stressed the collection of taxes from the eastern provinces. He feared the shifting weather patterns that threatened the autumn harvest, and he was haunted by the paranoid whispers of his political rivals plotting in the shadows. The moment he closed his heavy eyes, the crown he wore during the day seemed to crush his spirit in the dark. He was exhausted to his very bones, irritable, and slowly losing his grip on his own sanity. His immeasurable wealth could buy him islands, armies, and palaces, but it could not buy him a single, fleeting hour of inner peace. Desperate for a cure, the emperor commanded his royal physicians to brew the most potent medicines. They brought him bitter herbs, rare teas, and heavy elixirs, but the liquids did nothing to soothe his racing heart. He called upon the greatest philosophers and scholars in his court, hoping they could ease his mind with deep, intellectual wisdom. But their complex words and endless debates were just more noise added to an already deafening mind. Finally, an old, trusted servant whispered a rumor to the emperor. He spoke of a solitary Zen monk who lived high up in the misty, jagged mountains far beyond the capital. It was said that this monk possessed a profound, unnatural stillness. His presence was so deeply calm that even the wild, frightened animals of the forest would come out of the woods just to rest peacefully at his feet. Driven by pure exhaustion and a desperate need for silence, the emperor left his luxurious palace behind and made the long, arduous journey up the steep, rocky mountain path. When he finally reached the small, weathered wooden temple at the summit, he found the monk sitting quietly on a porch, slowly mending an old, torn robe. The emperor stood tall, his gold-embroidered silk robe standing in stark contrast to the monk's faded, threadbare cotton. "I am the emperor," he declared, his voice tight with fatigue and authority. "I control the world, yet I cannot control my own mind. I have come for your deepest wisdom. Give me a meditation, a secret text, a mantra, or a cure for this endless storm in my head." I will pay you with a chest of flawless jewels and grant you land as far as you can see." The monk did not bow. He did not look impressed, nor did he ask for the gold. He slowly, deliberately set down his needle, looked up at the emperor with clear, untroubled eyes, and stood up. He walked over to the corner of the wooden porch, picked up an old, worn bamboo broom, and walked back. He held it out, handing it to the most powerful man in the world. "I have no secret texts," the monk said softly, his voice like the calm wind. "But I have a prescription for you. Every day, you will wake up exactly 1 hour before the sun rises. You will take this broom and sweep the stone courtyard. You will sweep until the sun breaches the horizon. And while you sweep, you will not think of your empire. You will not think of your enemies, your taxes, or your gold. You will only sweep. That is all." The emperor stared at the rough wooden handle in his soft hands, completely bewildered and deeply insulted. A broom? He thought. For an emperor. He wanted to throw it back in the monk's face. But his exhaustion was heavier than his pride. He had tried everything else. With a heavy, reluctant sigh, he agreed to stay on the mountain. The following morning, long before the sun even considered rising, the mountain air was violently cold. It was pitch black, a deep, heavy darkness that existed long before the birds had even thought of singing their morning songs. The emperor, shivering in simple, unlined cotton clothes, stepped tentatively onto the freezing stone of the courtyard. He gripped the rough bamboo broom with his soft, manicured hands and began to sweep. Almost immediately, his mind violently rebelled. The massive, fragile ego of the ruler screamed in protest against the indignity of the task. "I am the emperor of the known world," he thought bitterly as he forcefully pushed a pile of dry, dead autumn leaves across the stone. "Why am I doing the mindless work of a lowly servant? What does moving dirt and leaves around have to do with ruling a nation? The eastern border is vulnerable to attack, the treasury needs a complete audit, my generals are likely conspiring against me, and I am out here in the freezing dark, destroying my hands." He swept aggressively, his movements sharp, jagged, and fueled by anger. The physical labor did not quiet his mind. In fact, the profound silence of the mountain only made the internal noise of his anxieties echo louder. When the sun finally rose, casting a pale, weak golden light over the mountain peaks, the emperor threw the broom to the ground, exhausted, panting, and furious. The monk, standing quietly by the wooden door, did not offer a word of comfort. He simply nodded, picked up the broom, handed it back to the emperor, and whispered, "Tomorrow." This agonizing internal war raged on for several days. Every single morning, the emperor fought the darkness, he fought the biting cold, and above all, he fought his own mind. His hands, unaccustomed to any form of physical labor, developed painful, stinging blisters. But his pride ached far worse than his muscles. He was constantly distracted, completely detached from the present moment. While his hands moved the broom, his mind was miles away, replaying bitter arguments with his advisors, planning complex military strategies, and deeply resenting the old monk for trapping him in this foolish, humiliating task. But on the 7th morning, something profound and unexpected shifted. The emperor woke up before the monk even came to his door to fetch him. He walked out into the freezing air, picked up the broom, and began. But this time, instead of fighting the task, instead of wishing he were somewhere else, he simply surrendered to it. He allowed himself to just do the work. He noticed, for the very first time, the rough, natural texture of the bamboo handle pressing against his calloused palms. He heard the rhythmic, hypnotic sound the dry bristles made against the cold stone. Swish, swish, swish. With every single sweep, a tiny, heavy fraction of his anxiety seemed to attach itself to the dust and get pushed away. He stopped thinking about the vulnerable eastern border. He stopped thinking about the complex treasury. He focused the entirety of his being on the small, 2-foot square of stone immediately in front of him. When a stray, anxious thought about the palace inevitably entered his mind, he did not get angry. He simply acknowledged it and gently brought his attention back to the sweeping. Swish, swish. The rhythm became a moving meditation. The courtyard was no longer a punishment or a prison, it had become a sanctuary. For the first time in years, the crushing, suffocating weight of the crown vanished completely. In the total darkness before dawn, he was not an emperor. He was not a ruler, a commander, or a politician. He was just a breathing human being, performing a simple, grounding act. Then, the sun began to rise. The emperor stopped moving and leaned heavily on his broom. He watched the horizon turn from a deep, bruised indigo to brilliant, breathtaking shades of orange and gold. The entire world was waking up, but his mind was profoundly, beautifully still. The air was fresh, the silence was perfect, and his chest felt lighter than it had in decades. The world hadn't asked anything of him yet, and for that one brief hour, he was completely at peace. The monk walked out onto the porch, carrying 2 small cups of steaming hot tea. He handed one to the emperor, his eyes crinkling in a warm smile. "How is the empire today?" the monk asked softly. The emperor took a slow sip of the warm tea, the golden reflection of the sunrise dancing in his eyes. "The empire is safe," he replied quietly, his voice carrying a new, unshakable weight. "Because the emperor is finally awake." He realized in that exact moment a universal truth: you cannot possibly govern a massive, chaotic kingdom if you cannot first govern the small, quiet space between your own ears. He packed his meager belongings that very day. When he finally returned to his grand palace, the external problems were the same. The generals still argued, the weather was still unpredictable, and the taxes still needed collecting. But the emperor was completely different. He had learned that by mastering the very first hour of his day in absolute silence, he had built an impenetrable fortress around his mind, a fortress the chaos of the outside world could no longer break. Before we continue to the modern application of this story, if this message of finding peace is resonating with your journey, please take a brief moment to gently tap the like button and subscribe to Buddha Coha. It helps us continue bringing you these stories of healing and inner strength. Now, let's explore how you can apply this ancient wisdom to your own life tomorrow morning. You might be listening to this ancient tale and thinking to yourself, that is a beautiful, inspiring story, but I don't wear a heavy gold crown. I don't live in a sprawling marble palace, and I certainly don't have vast armies or a nation to command. But the profound truth is, you do have an empire. Your empire is your daily life. It is your demanding career, your complex finances, your mortgage or rent, your family, your relationships, and the endless, exhausting list of responsibilities you carry on your shoulders every single day. And just like the emperor tossing and turning in the dark, the weight of your personal empire can be absolutely crushing. Think honestly about how you currently wake up. For the vast majority of us, the morning is not a peaceful transition into a new day, it is a sudden, chaotic collision with reality. A loud alarm jolts us out of our sleep. And before our eyes are even fully adjusted to the light of the room, what do? We blindly reach over to the nightstand and grab our smartphones. In the modern world, your phone is the exact equivalent of the emperor's frantic, whispering advisors. We open our glowing screens and instantly, willingly, invite the entire heavy world into our bed. We check urgent emails from demanding bosses, we scroll mindlessly through social media and subconsciously compare our behind-the-scenes reality to the heavily edited highlight reels of strangers, we read the negative, fear-inducing news, and we instantly start calculating all the stressful problems we need to fix. In that crucial, delicate first moment of waking consciousness, you are immediately surrendering your personal sovereignty. You are letting the outside world, with all of its noise, panic, and urgency, dictate exactly how you are going to feel. When you wake up like this, you spend the entire rest of the day playing defense. You are constantly reacting to everyone else's emergencies. You feel stressed, hurried, fragmented, and breathless. You are desperately trying to rule your modern empire, but your mind is entirely out of your control. You are physically awake, but internally, you are a frantic prisoner. The Zen monk on the mountain understood a fundamental, timeless truth about human nature. The first hour of the morning is the rudder that steers the ship of your entire day. It is the foundation upon which every other hour is built. And more importantly, it is the only time of the day that is truly, entirely yours. In those quiet, dark hours before the sun fully rises, the world is beautifully silent. Your boss isn't emailing you to demand answers. Your family is still peacefully asleep. The timelines haven't started churning out outrage. Society has not yet begun to make its relentless demands of your time and your energy. It is a sacred, untouched window of absolute stillness. When the emperor was out in the cold, sweeping the courtyard, he wasn't just performing the physical act of cleaning stone. He was engaging in the profound act of conscious separation. He was deliberately carving out a boundary between who he was as a fragile human being and the heavy, demanding roles he had to play in the world. He was emptying his cup before the world could rush in and try to fill it with stress and anxiety. If you want to stop feeling constantly exhausted, if you want to stop feeling like you are always running behind in your own life, you must stop treating your mornings as a rushed, panicked starting line for the day's race. You have to start treating your morning as a sanctuary. You need to reclaim your first hour from the noise of the world. You need to find your own quiet courtyard, and you need to sweep it. So, how do we actually translate the quiet, profound wisdom of the old monk and the emperor into our loud, modern, incredibly busy lives? You do not need to pack your bags and move to a misty mountain temple, and you certainly do not need to go out and buy a bamboo broom. But you do need a system. You need to build a small, quiet monastery in your own mind for just 1 hour a day. Here are 3 practical, deeply actionable steps to help you build your own sovereign morning, starting the very moment you wake up tomorrow. Step 1. Defend the gates of silence. The very first, non-negotiable rule of sweeping your personal courtyard is this: The outside world is not allowed in. For the first 60 minutes after you open your eyes, you must fiercely protect your attention. Keep your phone entirely out of reach. Leave it in another room if you have to. Do not check a single email. Do not open social media. Do not turn on the morning news. Think about it this way: you would never willingly unlock your front door at 5 in the morning and invite a crowd of loud, screaming strangers into your living room to tell you about their emergencies. So why do you invite the digital world into your mind before you've even had a glass of water? By defending this boundary of absolute silence, you are sending a powerful, subconscious psychological signal to your own brain: my inner peace is significantly more important than the world's false urgency. Step 2. Find your broom. The emperor's daily meditation was sweeping leaves off the cold stone. Yours needs to be a simple, physical, repetitive task that requires just enough attention to keep you firmly in the present moment, but not so much brainpower that it stresses you out. This simple act becomes your grounding anchor. For you, your sweeping might mean the slow, deliberate act of brewing a cup of coffee. But instead of just pushing a button on a machine and walking away to do something else, I want you to stand there. Listen to the sound of the water starting to boil. Breathe in the rich, earthy aroma of the roasted beans. Feel the comforting heat of the ceramic mug seeping into your palms. Do it with absolute, unbroken presence. Perhaps your broom is a quiet, solitary 15-minute walk around your neighborhood before the traffic starts. Feel the cool morning air filling your lungs. Notice the exact color of the sky. Listen to the sound of your own footsteps on the pavement. It could be watering your houseplants, taking the time to gently wipe the dust off their leaves. It could be doing some light, gentle stretching on the living room rug, or sitting by a window with a physical notebook, slowly writing down your thoughts with a pen. The specific activity you choose matters far less than the intention behind it. The ultimate goal is to perform a completely mundane task perfectly and peacefully. When your mind inevitably wanders to the stressful meeting you have later today, you do not get angry. You simply guide your attention back to the coffee, the walk, or the pen. Swish. Swish. You bring your mind back to the present, just like the bamboo broom against the stone. Step 3. Shift from reaction to intention. When you spend the first hour of your day in quiet, intentional action, something almost magical happens to your psychology and your nervous system. You build an invisible, impenetrable armor around your mind. Think back to a day in your life when everything seemed to go wrong from the very start. You woke up late to a blaring alarm, you stubbed your toe, you spilled your coffee on your shirt, and you rushed out the door with your heart pounding. The entire rest of the day felt like a disastrous struggle because your baseline momentum was chaotic. You were operating from a state of panic. Now, imagine a day that starts with 1 full hour of deep breathing, quiet observation, and absolute control. When the inevitable storms of the day finally hit you, the incredibly difficult client at 10 a.m., the unexpected financial bill at noon, the frustrating argument with a colleague in the afternoon, you will not break. You will not react with explosive anger, anxiety, or panic. Because your nervous system is calm, you will respond to these challenges from a place of deep, grounded stability. You have already won the single most important battle of the entire day, the battle for your own mind. You cannot control the global economy. You cannot control the heavy traffic on your commute. You cannot control the erratic behavior of other people. But you have absolute, sovereign control over how you begin your day. By claiming that first, quiet hour, you step out into the unpredictable world not as a frantic, overwhelmed victim of circumstance, but as a grounded, intentional sovereign of your own life. The unpredictable storms of life will always come. The heavy, endless demands of your personal empire will always be there, waiting for you when you finally step out of your front door. But the heaviest burdens of life become remarkably light when you are not carrying the extra, exhausting weight of a cluttered, chaotic mind. Tomorrow morning, the sun will rise just as it has for millions of years. The only question is, where will your mind be when that first light breaks? Will you be instantly trapped in the frantic, breathless rush of the modern world, reacting blindly to the demands of others? Or will you be standing quietly in your own courtyard, breathing deeply, completely at peace, and ready to face the day entirely on your own terms? The choice is yours. I would love to hear from you in the comments below. Tell me honestly, what is the one simple, quiet activity you will choose to be your broom tomorrow morning? Let's share our intentions and continue to build a beautiful community of grounded, peaceful living. If this video brought you a moment of clarity and peace today, please share it with someone in your life who might be feeling overwhelmed. And if you haven't already, subscribe to Buddha Coha for more deep dives into the ancient stories that heal the soul. I will be back again soon with another story. Until then, protect your peace, master your morning, and keep moving forward. Swish. Swish. Let the noise fade away. Have a beautiful day.